So, hi guys and gals. I'm going to talk about various myths that come up regarding Israel. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Israel committing genocide in Gaza? So to talk about that, let's start by talking about what is genocide. Well, the international law defines genocide as the deliberate attempt to erase a national, ethnic, religious, or racial group. So, it appears that the evidence of genocide is the elimination, or at least the drastic reduction, of a people group, and or the existence of the intent to eliminate a people group. So regarding the Gaza situation, the evidence of the drastic reduction in the population is non-existent, actually. The infographic, I have an infographic which really shows the population of Gaza increasing commensurate with populations. I'll just describe it here. It's just a list of the various nations in the Middle East, and it talks about their percentage growth in population, and they're typically hovering around anywhere from 518% up to about 1,600%. Gaza is about 1,000% population increase. So there's no indication of reduction in population. But if you looked at a shorter time frame, say from October 7th until now as a snapshot, there would be an indication probably of a decrease, and that would be as a result of the conflict, of course. But I'd submit that that's not genocide, that is suicide. Hamas is in full control of the disposition of the hostages and the belligerents. And if they were to release the hostages and negotiate a surrender, the war would end immediately. Furthermore, if the Gazans themselves, if the nations, that is, and the Gazans themselves would put pressure on Hamas to do that, to lay down their weapons, negotiate a surrender, release the hostages, it would likely increase drastically the probability that Hamas would do that very thing. So let's look at the evidence for genocide, that is, the existence of the intent to eliminate a people group. So, in order to do that, let's understand, what is Israel trying to do in Gaza? Israel's three goals of the war in Gaza, as articulated by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, are: 1, to eliminate Hamas and its infrastructure; freeing hostages, number 2; and number 3, ensuring that Gaza will never again pose a threat to Israel. So there they are, pretty simple. So one could ask, isn't eliminating Hamas the same as the deliberate attempt to erase a national group? Well, let's hold that thought. Before answering that question, let's understand why Israel has adopted the above three goals. Let's ask why those three goals. Well, I think the answer is simple. Because Israel wants to survive in a hostile neighborhood of nations. Hamas and Hezbollah have publicly communicated declarations in their charters that call for the destruction of Israel and the Jews. This is tantamount to declaring the intent to commit genocide. So, for the Jews in Israel, the issue is not academic, is it? It's existential. Israel must prevent Hamas and any potential partners from perpetrating genocide against the Jews and Israel. And the Jews, with their long history of persecution at the hands of many regimes, understand that the threat is not just to Jews in Israel, but to includes Jews worldwide. Further, as we all know, Hamas does not only threaten Israel, it threatens the U.S., the West in general, and any other country or people group that supports Israel. We all know that. This is basically threatening global genocide, isn't it? This should be obvious to everyone on the planet. Calling for death to Israel, death to America, and death to the West is simply and clearly threatening out-and-out genocide. It's the same. Surely we all understand that acting on any one of those death threats would definitely constitute, quotes, a deliberate attempt to erase a national group. So in view of the foregoing, Israel has to eliminate Hamas and its partners, and they have to ensure that Hamas and its partners can never get back into the position that they can do October 7th again, a thing that they have vowed to do again and again and again. So, is eliminating Hamas the same as the deliberate attempt to erase a national group? Well, eliminating Hamas doesn't necessarily mean killing them all, does it? It certainly means removing their weapons and any infrastructure they use to maintain their power. It certainly means that. It would be nice, we could play what if here, or wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if they would one day decide that they were wrong in attacking Israel and willingly gave up their weapons and their power base, their infrastructure? But unfortunately, they don't appear to be willing to do that. And therefore, removing their power to commit the genocide they threaten requires force and inevitably killing those who insist on carrying out their genocidal plans. Once enough weapons, infrastructure, and belligerents are eliminated, one could say that Hamas is as a viable threat, is eliminated. Note that none of this means going in there and randomly killing everyone in sight. Doesn't mean that, does it? It means carefully planned, focused maneuvers on belligerents only, while trying to keep them separated from non-belligerents in a dense urban setting. This is all the while Hamas embeds itself in the civilian population and wears civilian clothes on purpose to actually create civilian casualties to use to accuse Israel of genocide. Is not this a kind of perverted reverse genocide? Seems like it. Then comes the really hard part, ensuring Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. This will involve the de-radicalization, we've heard that word, of Gazans. This is a very complex and actually a deeply spiritual problem. However, is it not? I've been referring to Hamas along with its partners here in this discussion for a reason. Not only does Hamas cooperate with other radical groups with similar agendas, but it has become abundantly clear since October 7th that a majority of the people of Gaza themselves agree with and participate in in Hamas, with Hamas, you could say, and in its activities. It turns out that they took part in the massacres of October 7th and currently support Hamas in its belligerence against the IDF and Israel. So understanding how Israel can achieve its third goal is beyond the discussion, the scope of this discussion. But let's suffice it to say that until the Gazans themselves decide to stop the threat, intent, and practice of genocide against the Jews, killing will have to go on in Gaza. Is this killing genocide? I submit that no, it's not. But it is necessary to prevent a genocide that it is clear to the discerning world is intended, planned, and ready to be implemented wherever and whenever a defense against it is seen to be deficient. Shalom, everybody.